came here in '69, there was one apartment house, University Terrace, at Bush and Texas. That was it. There were no other apartment houses. Everything was rented. All the houses were rented. So we drove up and down the streets, and we saw this guy putting a sign out, and we stopped, and he was a computer science prof, and TI had offered to double his salary if he'd move up to Dallas 2 weeks before school started, and he had full class load. So his name was Mud, and he sold it to us for what we paid for it, I think we paid $18,000. It was on Lee Avenue. It's now worth about $950,000. So good investment. But Whataburger was the only eating place in College Station. When they put the Dairy Queen in, everybody said they'd go out of business because they were so far out of town. But anyhow, there were no golf course and no women's dorms. And I ended up at Texas A&M because I said, Berkeley had the only degree program in the U.S. on creativity and social and behavioral factors. All the other schools said, what's that got to do with architecture or anything? Except for the dean here, who said, oh, wow, we really want to expand our activities. So he said, you can open up any class you want, you can teach any way you want. And so I had a lot of fun. He ended up having people put up butcher paper over glass walls so people couldn't see in, because all of my profs at Berkeley were psychologists. And so I was having my students do meditation exercises laying on their drafting boards. He didn't want people going by to see that. And we did a lot of creative things. But anyhow, when I was in Dallas, in my first job, I was working on a house in Highland Park. And the lady was very rich. Her husband was going to build a giant house. So our boss was very interested. So I went into her house and looked around, and she had all these beautiful tapestries with patterns on them. And I said, gee, you really should have those patterns put on your stair treads. And she said, that's a great idea. So she told the boss she refused to go on with our house until her stair treads were carved. I'd never carved wood. And so my boss said, you got us into it, you can get us out of it. So after 5, every day after work, I went and carved her stair treads till they were finished. And then at Caudell, Rollins Scott, the partners there commissioned me to do little things for them, and which led to, I did, several carvings, doors, things like that. And then, but that particular series, when I came to A&M, the people at Caudell, Rollins Scott were asked to redo the Highland Park Methodist Church, which is the largest Methodist church in the world on the campus there. And so anyhow, I had to redo everything, the fount, the table, the whole bit. And it was actually as much carving as in the panels in the MSC. So I carved all of those things. And then one of the Board of Regents had seen it. Before, the Board of Regents were thinking to honor the 100-year anniversary of A&M, we'll come up with little figures and things like that to honor. And then this Board of Regents said, no, let's do something different. And so he had my dean come and look. And so they said, let's do something different. Let's carve the history of A&M. Okay. So they said, okay, carve the history of A&M, 100-year history. And I said, well, could you give me a book or references or anything? They had nothing, zero, nada. And so anyhow, I went to every college on campus and met with her executive boards and questioned them as much as I could, and got all of the professor emeritus that were still alive and talked to them, went to the MSc, and so I finally pieced the whole thing together and did drawings. And then the only thing that the Board of Regents had to change was the Corps of Cadets decided they would play a little trick on me. So they gave me a list of words to put around theirs that they use when they're ordering food or stuff. Some of the words were close to pornography, but they sounded okay. But when the Corps of Cadets knew that when you read them, what they actually meant. And the Board of Regents caught it when I presented them all the different sheets. And anyhow, we got that corrected. And then while I was carving it, Reveille died. And I had some wood still left, so I was able to angle it correctly with the grains, and I carved the new Reveille and glued it on, and you can't tell. And then if you've walked by, they have plastic over all the panels now. They had to put up the plastic because people would walk by and click souvenirs. The worst was Baylor. They'd come through after a game and just, rip stuff off. So I repaired it about 3 different times, and then they put up the plastic things to keep it from happening. But I'll be showing all this in a minute, hopefully, as soon as my wife returns. And but anyhow, that led to other things. When we did opened up the campus in Qatar, A&M campus in Qatar, they asked me to carve a 17-foot obelisk for the history of the Arab culture from the beginning of time and represent that. And I said, do you have any references? Well, no. So again, I went to the library and I spent lots of time. Well, in the library also, I went through every annual from the first annual of A&M and read through them all thoroughly to get the information. But I looked up all the Arab culture stuff I could get. Fortunately, there were 3 PhD students from Qatar that were in engineering, and they helped me on the wording and putting the Arab, things right. But that was really a tricky one. And then Her Highness sent her private jet to pick up the sculpture and us. And so I and most of the staff were on it. And then Bush had his jet going, and he had the Board of Regents on it. At the last minute, Bush canceled. And he said, okay, you'll have to get on her jet. We were all sitting in first class having drinks and toasted the Board of Regents as they went by. And then when we got off in Qatar, there was a giant sandstorm happening. Well, I'm from Lubbock, no big deal. And anyhow, half the people were afraid to get off the plane. And I said, no, it's just a sandstorm. And so we got on off, and went on in, and it was okay. And then all of the women on the staff and the Board of Regents' wife wanted to go shopping. Well, in the Arab cultures, a woman couldn't get into the marketplace on her own. They had a male company, and so they appointed me as the token male. So I accompanied all of them all over the marketplaces in Qatar. So, here comes the laptop. I didn't realize some laptops don't read, and some do. So we'll get this set up and on with it. But, there's several other things that happened. I'll show you well, when I was at Berkeley,
You can take a quick intermission to get all this set up. You
Oh,
log
okay.
into your laptop.
so while I was at Berkeley, I did other things to supplement income. I carved, I did welded sculptures, and I sold them at in San Francisco. Macy's came and bought about 41 of them to sell in New York, and then I carved a bunch of toilet seats. And then H.E. Budd had some friends of his in San Antonio and invited them down on the Gulf. He has his own lighthouse there. So we were invited, and so we thought I'd do a housewarming. So I carved a big toilet seat for him. You open it up, and it says H.E. Budd. And on the rim, it says the head. I have a warped sense of humor, by the way, in case you hadn't figured it out by now.
This is going way back, but could you tell me what it was that you carved on the first stair steps that you were saying that started you into carving?
Oh, they were off of tapestries.
So,
The designs from antique tapestries that she had hanging.
so like the
Mainly
horsemen
floral.
and floral.
Yeah.
Okay, so you decided from those what to put, and how many stair treads did you do?
Do what?
How many stair steps did you do?
There probably were like 20.
Oh my God. Well, you were an expert by that
Right.
time.
And then when I was hired, Alan Stasel was department head, and he was an artist and everything, and he realized how big a job, and they gave me 2 years to do it in. And so he scheduled all of my classes in the morning. So at noon till midnight, I carved 7 days a week. We actually finished about 10 days before the 2-year deadline, but it was pretty wild. And then when we were working on the Highland Park Methodist, we just started working on that when I got to A&M. So anyhow, I arrived from Berkeley in a yellow van with bell bottoms and sideburns, and so so anyhow, the neighbors were like horrified because it was an old neighborhood. They were peering out their blinds. So when we finished the Highland Park Methodist, we invited them all over, and then they decided, well, we were okay.
Okay, this is the Capital National Bank doors in Houston. Okay, and this is for Texarkana, and it's in their town square. This is one of the doors I carved. This is over on Rosemary. And this is a door I carved in Houston. Okay, here's the A&M panels. And it started with finding the old train station, and then found the cart and old van that pulled the cadets' luggage to the different cottages and cabins, and then we did the different dates. But the buildings that were there, and the water tower and the train. And then went through and got all the uniforms from the first one to the present World War II uniform, which included cowboy outfits and megaphones and the whole bit, to the present day uniforms. And then all the different core symbols that they used. And then bonfire. And I don't know if you know Robert Riggs. He won the Pulitzer Prize when he was here. He was a journalist for ABC, I believe. And anyhow, he was a student here. And he did the the first thing on Bonfire. And anyhow, there was a girl in the FIS program that was a photographer, and she had a perspective correction lens. And she was out photographing when they were building it, and she noticed it leaning each day, leaning. So she ran up to the red pot place and said, "Look, it's leaning, it's about to fall over." And they told her to shut the hell up. If she opened her mouth again, they'd get back at her. And so she kept her mouth quiet, but she could have prevented all the deaths and the fall of Bonfire. And anyhow, Robert uncovered all of that in his report. Okay, this went from showing the cattle, and agriculture, and then the center in Galveston, and all the new different things that A&M was doing. And then when they had the first spaceship or satellite that did the research here, and then all to the different developments at A&M.
What is the balloon for? A weather balloon?
Yeah. And then this was an addition panel at the very, this happened about 2 years afterwards, where they wanted all of the different college, patterns, things like that up there, and things illustrated. And this was in the garage. We were carving away. That's one of the tools. And we had these special pallets built to set them on. And then as we finished, we'd lay them out. Do y'all remember the bowling alley at the state in the account? Well, we have the last section of it that's remaining. I went to around the campus. They had just torn it down. And there was this one piece that was still intact. So I went out Wayne Starks had us and asked him, "Can I get that back?" And he said, "No, we have to send it over and have it auctioned off and just destroy it." He said, "But I will be there up there on Saturday, and I might leave it unlocked." And he did. So that's our work table. And so when we finished those and rolled them up, we'd lay them out in the bowling alley table. And if you've been to St. Thomas Episcopal, the first priest there asked me to do a cross that showed that God would not send rain to flood the earth again. So he wanted a rainbow cross. So about 2 priests later, they closed it and locked it up because he thought it was a gay cross. It's out now. And let's see, this is a door we carved for oil lady in Midland. And she was on the phone all day drinking Dr. Peppers. Her husband was a hunter. And anyhow, she'd had 2 Great Danes and a Yorkshire. And she had her Mercedes, and she was on the phone. There's the Dr. Peppers. And she collected, fine arts. And then we did these crosses for St. Thomas Aquinas. This is for Germania Insurance Company. This is for the Swanson Board of Directors. Okay, this is an obelisk that A&M commissioned me to carve that's in the library.
Mr. Hill, in the Christian Darts, it is in the Heavens Library.
Do what?
Which library? The Cushing on the Sterling.
Which library?
Oh, A&M, what?
Which?
Let's see, or the Sterling.
Yeah, it was in the library.
Evans or
I think it's still in Evans. And this is for Germania Insurance Company.
The code name.
This is St. Thomas Aquinas, which is just down the street. And did all of their cross, calisthenics, and everything. And this is for the chairman of the board of directors in Midland, and it's for his wife. And this is in Constitution Hall in Washington, D.C., and it's the seal of the state of Texas.
how big is that?
Pretty big.
Yeah.
And this is St. Thomas Aquinas Catholic.
Good.
Are these different woods now?
Oh, it's still St. Thomas Aquinas Catholic. The big Stations of the Cross.
Yeah, but what kind of wood?
In walnut and galvan, and then design their chairs and stuff like that. And this is for Germania Insurance Company. They wanted to see what the state of Texas. And this is in downtown Houston. It's in the, I forgot what building it's in. It's just across the center of house. This was for on a guy named John Healy. This is the key to the Bush Library. And it's sitting there on the director's desk. And this is that HEB policy. And as you go on campus, this is a muster sketch statue, bronze. And this is the table that you go to during muster. This is silver cups. And if you go to the core center, here's all the things from the core center. But here's the mace that the kids fall down to get their diploma. And the 12th Man Foundation sign. And the School of Architecture said, okay, we want you to do the history of the School of Architecture.
Something like that.
Which I had to research all that, got it put together. While I was doing the A&M one, the Regents realized there was no history of A&M, so they hired Diplom to write a history of A&M. He didn't know I was doing this, and I didn't know he was trying it. And this is them erecting the obelisk in cover. And it's bronze and cardboard. But, you know, the first universities were in the Arab countries and all sorts of things, all the mathematics. And then all of that, thank God for the PhD students from Arab countries that helped me.
Now, when you had something in bronze, how did that work?
Well, I had 2 or 3 people in Texas that cast stuff for me.
Okay.
And when we did all the stuff for cover, Her Highness sent her private plane to pick it up. And they boxed it up and set it off by itself. Because she had to look at it first to see if she would allow it, you know, in her postings. And so anyhow, she liked it. And so when it was presented there, she had a large reception and dinner for everybody. And so if you're a man, you don't reach out to touch a woman. And she actually came over and reached her hand out to shake mine, which was a real honor. And then one of the merchants in Qatar, A&M gave them their old mace, which was pretty beat up. And he didn't like that. So he commissioned me to make a new mace out of sterling silver. And it had to outshine the mace. So I had to do all the research of the symbols that were allowed in the Arab culture. And then Cherry Jones up in Dallas, he did the big auditorium there, stadium, and he was not an Aggie, and he really didn't like Aggies, but A&M was having a game there. So the Board of Regents wanted me to design a pin that said Grand Buildings Award, and then Texas A&M, and then at halftime they presented it to him and put it over his neck. So he had to wear it. It said A&M. So here's other things I carved. Couple of thorns in the hand. And then this is my favorite piece. It won the grand award at the International Contest on Religious Art and Sculpture. And the conference was on, is Christ in the cross or on the cross? And nobody had ever carved Christ in the cross. So I carved Christ in the cross. Kind of hanging there. Let's see, that's pretty much it.
Up you. Not that big, so.
Yeah.
Are you still carving now that you retired?
No, about 10 years ago, I had a pacemaker put in, and they said I couldn't be around anything magnetic. So to keep in shape, we go swimming 5 times a week. In fact, in about an hour, we'll hit the pool. It's hard work staying beautiful at my age.
Did you teach wood carving?
No, didn't teach any wood carving. I didn't teach any sculpture or anything like that. Taught mainly design, creativity, and future studies. There's a thing called an entrepreneur program at A&M, and it was the first one that was started, Startup Aggieland. And it was the first entrepreneur program started. And we had several students that won international awards, with things they started. And then my classes, in one of the classes, they were required, as part of their class, they had to come up with an original idea that had to be copyrighted or patented before the end of the semester. And so there's several things that happened after that. There's a guy that took it, that was an architect, went to work in Seattle, was working on one of Bill Gates' projects, and he was helping some guys, afterward they were discussing, and they said, well, we can't figure out this game that Bill Gates wants. So he gave them a bunch of ideas. And they went, oh, wow. So they went back and told Bill Gates. Bill Gates went and hired him, and he came up with the Xbox. And then Vestas hired him to be vice president of Amazon. So, there's things like that have happened. On the inventions, one of the guys came up, if you've been to a pool and you've seen those tubes of foam that float around the pool, he invented that in class. And they patented it and then actually started selling them at Walmart and places, and finally went national with them. So, there's several things that people have come up with, but that was the idea, was to get them to come up with their own creative ideas. and to think of them. And we had guys come in and talk about patents and stuff and how do you patent and things like that. So try to keep them off the streets.
Do you have any idea how many things you've carved?
We've got a record of them.
Yeah.
A lot. I mean, there's small things to large things. And then lots of welded things I did, when I was in Berkeley and right out of Berkeley, that I welded here. Because before we started on the Highland Park Methodist, I was welding in the garage.
He welded my mother in 1973 a mosquito. It's all wire.
Yeah.
It's about this big. Texas size mosquito. And when she passed, I inherited that mosquito.
Right. And then lots of toilet seats. In Berkeley and San Francisco, we sold ones that were called, we had one with a Santa Claus on it, and we call it Santa Flush. And then we had one with sort of an American flag. We called it the Birch John. And anyhow, they were as I said, I have a warped sense of humor. So we had lots of interesting toilet seats. And then, one I did that was in a show in Houston, and it made it to the show. It was called Passing Fancy. And it was all flowers and stuff like that on the toilet seat. So, any other questions?
You may have already said, but where did you do all of the carvings? Like for the MSC, where were you doing the carvings?
What did we want?
Wait, where were you doing your carvings?
Oh, in my garage.
In the garage?
Yeah, became our workshop. Now, Sue and I worked on all the carvings for, A&M, and we got a babysitter so she could come in and work. And when we finally finished 10 days before, we got out. I think we were mowing the lawn or doing something, and the neighbor stopped the car and said, "What is it? What are you doing?" We told, "Well, we just finished." But they did a booklet on it and everything. And then I just got a letter 2 weeks ago from the Highland Park Methodist Church. And they want me to come up and talk about the carvings in the Highland Park Methodist Church. And they want to make a booklet and wanted to get my permission to use photographs of the carvings and stuff like that. Any other questions?
Have you ever thought about doing a book?
Not really.
You should, for your posterity
Yeah.
family.
There's lots of unusual small carvings, for private commissions for people. So,
How long does it take you to do a small, like, a little thing? I mean, I know it varies, but.
oh yeah, it varies. Let's see, the hand that had the cross in it, or the crown of thorns in it, that probably took a week.
What about the larger ones?
What?
How long did it take you to do
The A&M ones,
one panel?
it took 2 years
To do all of,
to do all of them.
and that doesn't count your research, I bet.
What? Oh, didn't count 4 months of research. Because there was no research done. It was the same with the cutter panels. They had a deadline too, but they didn't have any research on the history of the Arab culture from the beginning of time.